Welcome to We Love That For You, a wedding podcast with personality, perspective, and plenty of heart. We are Chris and Jackie from Limelight Entertainment, and we're here to help you plan your best day ever without the stress. So today we're talking about venue vibes, how to find the perfect place for your day. In our last episode, we welcomed you all to who Chris and Jackie, who we are. And we helped you, look at the 5 things that couples forget to think about early on when wedding planning. So, if you've just gotten engaged or you're knee deep in venue tours, this upcoming episode about venue vibes is for you. So basically, we want to help you find a space that feels like you, not just one that looks good in photos. Do you remember what it was like when we started looking for venues for our wedding, Chris?
No.
No?
No.
Do you remember anything about the day we toured venues? We only toured the one day.
Was it only the one day?
It was just one day.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember anything about it?
Yeah, well, I do remember going to a couple different places. I remember which places we went to.
Mm-hmm.
Can I really kind of pull up specifics? Honestly, not really, but
okay.
That's why I have you, because you remember all the details.
That is why you have me. Oh, yes, I do remember all the details. But yeah, when we went on our tours for that day, we did have some specifics in mind. We did have some must-haves. We knew what we were looking for. I think one priority that I was looking for was distance from our ceremony space, because we definitely did something a little untraditional where we had our ceremony not in a church, but we had our ceremony on the beach in Point Pleasant by the inlet. Mm-hmm. And that was a completely different vendor and a completely different venue for the ceremony. So the logistics needed to make sense. And I wanted a venue that was going to be a direct shot for our guests. I wanted the venue to be close. The last thing I wanted was for our guests to have to drive any more than 15, 20 minutes to go from ceremony to reception.
Yeah.
So that was the top priority. But, when we were looking at venues, I remember we saw 3. And, the first one I really liked, and you didn't like it for a few different reasons. And then the second one we both liked, but it was a little bit out of our budget. And then there were other logistical things that I wasn't a fan of. And then the third one checked off all the boxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I remember most about venue shopping. But when we got to the one, that we ultimately booked, they checked off all the boxes. It felt good.
All right, so what do you think stresses couples out most about picking a venue?
Something that I think would stress a couple out about picking a venue is considering their guest count. Mm-hmm. A lot of venues have minimums, and then, of course, overall cost. But when it comes to guest count, for example, we had a large guest count. So that is important to keep in mind when you're deciding on a venue. You don't want a venue that maxes out at 150, but you're inviting 250 and hoping that people don't respond with a yes. Mm-hmm. Because then you're potentially adding more stress at the end of the day if you have more than 150, but also because the room just feels tight and it feels overcrowded. Then on the opposite side of the spectrum, if you're planning a smaller wedding because you want something more intimate, but you go with a place that has a minimum, now you're stressing about having to meet that minimum, but you really want something intimate. So it's just really finding your vibe and figuring out what where is your guest count going to feel the most comfortable.
Yeah, finding that balance.
Yeah, because I've been in a ballroom that holds 200 to 300 people with a 60, 70 person guest count, and it feels empty in there.
Yeah, it feels weird.
It feels empty. And then I've been in venues where they overpacked the day. Like they overpacked the space with people, and your servers are having a hard time moving through the room, and your vendors are having a hard time moving through the room. And if they are, then that means your guests are also having a hard time moving through the room. So it can feel a little too tight at some points. You want it to be tight on your dance floor, but
100%.
I don't think you want it to feel tight for the people who are just casually walking around the room saying hi to people at tables or going to the bar. Tightness on the dance floor is cool, but everywhere else there needs to have a natural flow.
Yeah.
So, but also something else that I feel like could stress couples out is choosing an inclusive venue or a boutique venue. Because an inclusive venue, you can get things like cake included. Centerpieces, as we talked about in the last episode, can be included. Food, obviously, but
your linens, all of that.
Linens, tablecloths. I mean, the list goes on and on about what would be included in a venue that is mostly inclusive, or you have the option to add those things on, versus a boutique venue that we've worked at a few where you have to bring everything in.
Yes. What would be an example of like a boutique venue?
Like a farm, a barn, just somewhere that offers you the option to have a wedding there, but they're not doing it every weekend.
Yeah.
They don't have a caterer that they recommend that's going to bring you your silverware. I mean, I remember talking about our wedding and saying I wanted it to be in our backyard, and Sarah, my best friend's name Sarah, quickly snapped me into reality where she was like, if you do that, you are paying for chairs, you are paying for napkins, you are paying for silverware, you are paying for all these little things, a toilet for your guests to go to the bathroom in. I mean, the list goes on and on about things that you have to bring in certain situations. So it sounds fun to have like a boutique wedding, but just make sure that that boutique wedding venue is a place that can bring you all these things. And if not, you're going to have a wedding planner who's going to help you make sure you check off all those boxes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, as far as our wedding venue goes and our venue story, we already have concluded that you don't remember the day we toured. So how many can you tell me how many venues we toured, or did I already say that?
Well, you told me 3.
You already know the answer.
You told me 3, yeah. So I do know. Absolutely.
So what were we looking for versus what we actually ended up booking? I think that we were looking for just a space to call ours, something that, somewhere where our guests weren't traveling very far, and somewhere that had, I remember what was important to you at one venue I liked because of its kind of aesthetic and old world feeling. But you didn't love how close the ceiling was to the dance. Like, you didn't like how low the ceiling was because you had lighting in mind. You were like, I want this to be an epic production.
Yeah, I'm never really a fan of venues with low ceilings. Number one, it feels enclosed. It feels tight, especially if you have a big guest list. And then, coming from a DJ standpoint, with lighting, there's minimal things that you can do with lighting and production effects with low ceilings. So when we saw that one venue, I was like, immediately no.
It felt restricting.
It felt very restricted, yeah. So you want, to me, I really wanted something with high ceilings, big, open.
Yeah, yeah. And I really wanted somewhere where we could like party afterwards and have breakfast the next day. So that was for sure something that was on my list that I was looking for. And we ended up booking. I think our venue ended up meeting all of our needs 100,000%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. Absolutely.
Did we prioritize vibe, price, or logistics?
Vibe, price, or logistics. I mean, I would say a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
As far as like the vibe goes, getting back to what I wanted the space to look like with lighting design, it checked off that box. High ceilings, wide room, long room, You know, it was able to accommodate our large guest list. I mean, I think our guest list was originally 250 and 200 ended up showing up.
200.
So, you know, we had a bigger ballroom, bigger dance floor, and it was perfect for that. Didn't feel cramped, kind of like what you were talking about before. Price aligned with what we were looking to spend, so that was great. And then the logistics, I mean, everything ran smoothly as well, you know, with the whole timing of the event and the flow of everything and the way everything worked out that day. So, yeah, I mean, I think we prioritized really well.
Yeah. I think it was a good balance.
Yeah.
I don't think we prioritized one thing over another. But, yeah, I think it worked out really well.
Definitely. So if we did it all over again, right?
Yeah.
And we were having our wedding like today, would you stick with the same type of venue or the same venue?
So I don't think, knowing what I know now about wedding days and also being so heavily invested in photography, I don't think I would have chosen the same type of venue. Although I can't really say that. So I've seen so many really gorgeous venues too. And I feel like we could have gone with something a little bit more aesthetic, something that offered a lot more photo options on site. We took all of our photos down at the beach, so that was really pretty. And we were traveling that day anyway, so we decided early on that our logistics meant that we were traveling, our guests were traveling. So I think it really just depends on how we would feel about that today, you know.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So I guess the one thing that I would say that our venue didn't offer was great outdoor photo locations. So maybe thinking about that, you know, if we could have chosen a different venue that had more options when it came to outdoor photo locations, maybe, you know, that would have been better. We would have had some nicer photos in the portfolio. I mean, we were able to get all of our outdoor photos at the beach and everything that day, which is great.
Us.
Yeah, which was great, but definitely some more outdoor photo locations would have been better.
Yeah, I think that we've worked with so many wedding venues now that have a really, really great array of photo locations. So, and then also their logistics are great, where like there's hotels that are 5 minutes away. You know, would we be having our breakfast, you know, the next day at that hotel 5 minutes away? Yes. Would we have to book transportation to go to and from the venue? Sure. I think we would just be reworking the entire day a little bit, but I definitely don't think I would choose the same venue.
That's another good point that you mentioned with venues that have hotels only a couple minutes away. That's definitely something to keep in mind, right? Like let's say you're getting married in a venue that is not a hotel. You know, where are your guests staying that night? You know, you don't want them to have to drive a far distance to get to where they have to go, like if people are traveling. So
yeah, it's really important.
Accommodations are important. Also knowing if there's something going on in the area. We work at the Jersey Shore a lot, and this area is so busy, and there are things being held weekly in our area that would book up all the hotels. So also knowing, you know, the time of the year, what's going on. Like I remember we worked a wedding one weekend of See Here Now, and it was like, get into town early. See Here Now is a festival in Asbury Park. So, you know, it was get into town early, get your parking spot early. Like there's just a lot of things for us logistically, but for you, it would be, are those hotel blocks going to get filled up? You know, so just things that you could keep in mind. I'm sure we could probably go on about that for days. So definitely. What did we learn from the whole planning experience that couples should know today?
Well, I think that we learned to make sure, you know, you take your time, you ask your questions, and you tour venues so that you find the right vibe for you. You know, make sure you have that list of must-haves and make sure that it feels right. You know, logistical, whatever your priority is. You know, just keep it in mind while looking.
All right, next, the vibe check.
The vibe check.
Tell us about the vibe check, Jackie.
Yeah. So when it comes to, your style, your energy, lighting, layout, staff, all of these things are important when it comes to figuring out what your venue vibe is. Okay. We've been to so many incredible venues, and each one creates a totally different energy. I think that you can agree with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just the energy of the space when you walk in, right? Whether it's a ballroom or whether it's, a barn or rustic looking, whatever it is.
Right.
Each space puts off a totally different energy.
And it has to be your vibe. So
Yeah.
like we're really coastal people. So like I feel like a coastal venue would make more sense for us. You know, I know you don't love going to farm tours with me and feeding the animals.
No. No.
You're not going to be like, yes, I'm so happy to get married at a barn. You know, it's just not our vibe. But we are boat people. We are beach people. We are summer people. So that would make the most sense. So that's, I think, the biggest thing is just figuring out what your energy is and what makes the most sense. Because you don't want to force something either. You don't want to be like, oh, farm weddings are in right now, so that's why I'm going to pick a farm wedding. If that's not your vibe, don't do it. It's not going to feel like you. And that is what's going to make the day as genuine as possible, is when it feels like you.
Definitely. So when you find a venue that feels like you, whether it's coastal, whether it's barn, rustic, or ballroom, what's the first thing couples should look for when they walk into a venue?
Okay, so to retouch on photos, because I'm always going to touch on photos. That's my jam. Pretty indoor spaces. I think that having pretty indoor spaces is just as important as having pretty outdoor spaces, because if it is going to be extremely hot or extremely cold, or if it potentially rains, you want to have options, and you want them to be pretty options. So, you want to make sure you are looking for pretty spaces, indoor and outdoor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to say, number one thing is to really just make sure that, look for a friendly, knowledgeable staff, right? Ask questions, and ensure that their answers align with the vision that you have for your day, right? Because we all need to be on the same page here,
Yeah.
So if you find that friendly, knowledgeable staff, you know that you're going to be taken care of on your wedding day.
Yeah, I think that's very important, for sure.
Have you ever seen a couple pick a space that didn't match their vibe?
I have.
Tell us about that.
I've seen, and it happens. So it's like, but I've seen some vibes that just kind of didn't align. So, picture yourself in a coastal venue. Everything's really beachy. And, normally you would accent that room with like coastal colors, the colors you would see in like the sand in the ocean, blues and beiges, maybe seafoam greens and things like that. And instead it was met with kind of like a Disney feeling theme, where you saw a lot of like Beauty and the Beast items, and deep reds and nods to Disney. And don't get me wrong, everyone loves Disney, but it has to make sense. And the nod to Disney doesn't have to be so in your face. So, example, we did a wedding at one venue, and it was like a garden venue, and they loved Disney. But what they did was, in piping on their cake, they piped little Mickey Mouses. And they had little nods to Disney that, like, I saw, as a photographer. I noticed it, and I would hope that their guests noticed it. Like little nods throughout the day that felt like they made sense. They fit the garden, feel of the venue, but they were little nods to Disney. Where on the opposite end, this one was like a coastal venue. Lots of blues, lots of seafoam greens, lots of beiges. And then there was like these deep reds and nods to like Beauty and the Beast, but they were kind of not even nods. They were like in your face details and it just didn't fit. But at the end of the day, it is their day. And if that makes sense to them, and if that feels like them, then that makes sense.
Yeah,
it still
absolutely.
makes sense. But how about for you?
For me, I've definitely done weddings in spaces that were just kind of way too small for what the couple was looking for, entertainment wise.
Yeah.
Right. So we were planning this one wedding, and the couple was talking about, they love the idea of adding visuals, so they wanted to have TVs. They love the excitement of lighting, and all of these fun add-ons that could be really, really fun and really, enhance the guest experience, when it comes to dancing and the whole dance floor vibe and everything else. But, the venue just didn't have the space to accommodate all of that production,
right.
Where we're supposed to set up. And number two, the venue didn't have enough power either to run all of that production.
Which is important.
Which is very, very important, right? So, a lot of times, certain venues, they allow you tons of space and they offer you tons of power, which is great.
Yeah.
And what I mean by power is like enough dedicated outlets, not to get like too super technical or anything right now, but, these spaces, do need to realize that, like, if you're coming in with all of this production, we need to be able to power it properly without having to worry about tripping breakers or anything like that.
Of course. Of course. It's very important. I feel like the smoke looked really good, but the music cut out in the middle of it.
Yeah, so, I mean, unfortunately, I was working with this couple who had obviously already booked this venue, and they were really excited about the space, but they were also really excited about all this additional production that they wanted to incorporate. But unfortunately, we couldn't because the space just didn't allow it. So, that's definitely something to think about when you are booking a venue. If you want to have, an elaborate, entertainment setup, because that's what you're going for, that's what your vision is, then consider that when you're looking at the venue space. Where is my DJ setting up? Where is my band setting up? What access do they have to power? Things like that. This way, when you're putting all the pieces to the puzzle together, it will all work out. Now, listen, in the end, did we have a great time that day? Absolutely. We played great music, people danced, they had a fun time. But it's just not what the couple originally had in mind.
Chris, what's a subtle detail that tells you a venue is really well run?
So, first impressions, right?
Yeah.
You go to tour a venue, when you walk into the space, are you being greeted? Right? Or are you walking into this space and
you don't know where the office is?
You don't know where the office is. No one's there to greet you. You're yelling down the hallway, hello, hello, right?
We're here.
Yeah, that should tell you something about their customer service.
Yeah. That's like first impression.
That's first impression right off the bat. That's going to tell you, like, a little something about their attention to detail. That's going to tell you a little something about, like, oh, okay, they're going to take care of me or not so much.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I feel like those venues that give you that great first impression, they will always have that high level of service throughout the entire day.
100%.
On top of throughout the planning. But I mean, even something like as greeting somebody when you walk in for a tour, same thing when we get to a venue. Like, I'm usually there before the DJ team or maybe around the same time as the DJ team, but I'm usually arriving with the couple, and having that greeting when you first get there is super important. Like, you pull up in your limo, you get out, oh my goodness, things are getting real, and then your venue staff is ready. They're ready to greet you, and they're ready to be like, hey, this is the best day ever. Let's go. Let's do this. So I think that it translates throughout the entire experience for you, for the couple. And even if I'm not your lead photographer, I'm always the one planning with the couples. So I always tell them venue sets the tone for everything else. It really does.
Absolutely.
It does. And we work with a lot of the same venues on a regular basis, and it really is such a wonderful experience for everyone. So it's really nice.
So what's something couples forget to ask their venue until it's too late?
So what I think is something that couples forget to ask their venue until it's too late is what time they're allowed to arrive on site. Although if you work with me, I'm not going to let you forget that, because I'm going to be asking you that from like 6 months before the wedding date, is like, what time are we allowed on site? But it is really important to know that, because if you do plan to take all of your photos on site, we need to know how much time we have to do so. So, and then we want to make sure that we're planning out that timeline to make sure that there's wiggle room and that there's room to breathe and enjoy. So yeah, what time can you arrive on site is a really important question to make sure you're asking your venue.
There you go.
Yeah, and if you can ask that question at your first tour, ask it. So from a DJ's perspective, what's one layout or setup that can make or break the dance floor energy?
If you have a smaller guest list, having a larger dance floor can absolutely kill the dance floor energy. So if you have a smaller guest list, definitely look for a venue that has, a smaller dance floor where the energy will kind of like stay alive, right? Because then you won't have
intimate space.
Yeah, exactly, like an intimate space. This way, people aren't so spread out in different like kind of pockets. And then also from a DJ perspective, if you're looking to have a bunch of advanced production, like let's say CO2 guns, CO2 cannons, sparkler fountains, dancing on the clouds effect, all these fun things that can really kind of add to the guest experience, make it fun, make it exciting, give your whole reception that wow factor. Make sure that these enhancements are allowed at the venue, and they're allowed to be run on the property, because certain venues do have restrictions, and you should be aware of that prior to booking the venue.
Yeah, and our viewers can always ask us too if they are curious. Like, let's say they haven't booked a venue yet, and they really want sparklers.
Yeah.
They can reach out to us and ask us. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Because I've definitely been in situations before where, I've been on a call with a potential couple, and they're like, "Oh, we love the sparklers,"
and they already have their venue booked.
They already have their venue booked, and I have to let them know, like, I'm so sorry, but those aren't permitted on the property there. So let's look at some different options.
Yeah.
Not saying that that's super devastating, but if it's something that you're looking forward to, ask those questions before you book the venue.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk about natural light. Right? So how does natural light or room layout affect photos?
Well, I would say natural light is always great, but also having a photography team that knows how to read light and make decisions, whether it be by bringing in artificial light or making decisions in camera for that space, is important. I've worked in many venues that have like pillars in the middle of the room that interrupts my light. I've worked at venues that have tons of natural light flooding in from windows like right behind the couple. So these do affect photos, but having a photographer confident in their skills and their artificial lighting skills and being able to balance that, you're still going to end up getting great photos. Knowing what to do in those situations is super important. So,
gotcha. So that's really more so like a conversation with a photographer prior to hiring a photographer that you're considering, right? Like, hey, my room has a lot of natural light. Like, there's a bunch of windows behind the sweetheart table. How do you feel about capturing, photos of speeches with that much light coming in? I guess that's a photographer question.
That's a great question to ask your photographer. So, but, also like when you're walking into a venue and you're feeling that energy, like let's say there is a bunch of light coming in and it's sunset and it's like a beautiful, beautiful energy in that room. And that's the energy you want for your first dances, because we work at a couple of venues where they like strategically raise the curtains.
Yes.
They like strategically, so they don't open the curtains for introductions. But then during that first dance, they like strategically open that
just to
curtain
kind of set the mood
to like bring you into the sunset, and if you could time it perfectly, and we've been at weddings where it's been timed absolutely perfectly, if that's what you're visualizing for your first dance or for your reception vibe and feel for that celebration, then go for it. You know, like, you know, the photography, as long as you pick the right photographer, and that's a completely different conversation for a completely different episode, as long as you pick the right photographer for that room, they're going to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
And they're going to be able to capture that energy.
Absolutely.
So.
Cool.
What's one hidden gem venue we've worked that totally exceeded our expectations?
Totally exceeded our expectations.
There's a lot of I wouldn't
so
consider they're
venues.
Hidden though. They're not hidden. There's so many gem venues around here.
There really are. That's a really hard question.
Yeah, maybe our viewers can ask us privately, you know, what our favorite venues are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Ask us privately. We've got so many venues around here.
Absolutely.
And they're all gems. The ones that we work at often are all gems.
Yeah, definitely.
I wouldn't consider them hidden.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to like single out like a particular venue.
Yeah. Because like honestly. So yeah, feel free to let us know if you have any questions or if you want our top picks. And each one I could say has a completely different vibe. And that's really what we're talking about right now. Is like, what's your vibe? I could give you a coastal one. I could give you a garden one. I could give you a rustic one.
We have lots of
I could give you an elegant one. I could give you, probably multiple. So
we have lots of great suggestions on our website.
We do.
Yeah.
So. Head to our website.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. You could kind of see the ones we love to work at because they're all over our website.
Definitely.
That's for sure.
All right, let's talk about the decision then, right?
The decision.
You've gone, you looked at all these venues, and it's like, all right, what's a good sign that you've found the one?
You could picture your pictures there.
You could picture your pictures there. Okay. So you know you've found the right venue when you could picture your pictures there.
Yeah, like I said, you can go to Instagram and see other people's wedding photos and be like, that looks like exactly how I want to see them. It's like, you know, I'm hoping that you're going to put them on your walls. I'm hoping that you're going to put them in an album. And I'm hoping that you can visualize, like dream, like you're driving in the car and you're daydreaming about your wedding. And that's what they look like.
Yep. And picturing your pictures there, you got to check off those boxes with the right outdoor locations, the right indoor locations. And
you can picture your party there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
Excellent. So how do you know when to stop touring venues?
When you know, you know. Hopefully when you know, you know. It's just a feeling, you know, like with ours, I feel like we checked off all those boxes. We felt really good with, you know, our tour sales consultant. We just felt really comfortable. We felt confident in them. And it just felt like a yes.
Definitely.
From the start.
And when you have that, right, it's a gut feeling thing, right?
It's so gut feeling.
So when you have that gut feeling, it's like, that's it. Don't overthink it. Mm-hmm. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't go see 5 more venues. It's like...
Yeah, because I think when you go see 5 more venues, you really start to then bring in the overwhelm because then you're second guessing things.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's too much at that point. So once you have that gut feeling, just go with it, book it, move on.
Yeah, enjoy the process. Don't drive yourself crazy.
Exactly. So what would you say to couples who are torn between 2 different places?
That's a good question because I wasn't torn between 2 different places because of the progression of our tours. It just made sense on that final tour. But I would say if I were to give advice, I would say to make a list, pros and cons.
Okay. So what's on your pros and cons list?
Pros, indoor outdoor spaces for photos.
Always going back to those indoor outdoor spaces for photos.
Indoor outdoor spaces for photos.
Well, I guess it's really important because, you know, if you have a rainy day, you want to make sure that there's great location inside.
Yeah. You know, like you said, the level of service you're going to be getting, you know, of course, food and flow of the day and how you feel when you go into the venue. So, you know, those would be the pros and cons. but at the end of the day, if like you've got two great contenders and it's just that hard of a decision, then I would go with price at the end of the day. I felt that would be the last thing, but I would go with price.
Okay. I'm also going to go with some feedback, right?
Right. Oh, true. Yeah.
Before it's based on price, right? Because it's always about the experience, right?
Yeah, you're right.
There's a lot of great like social groups.
Yeah.
Where you could go on, like Facebook groups right now are huge. Mm-hmm. And you could go on some local Facebook groups and just kind of ask about people's past experiences at these two venues that you're deciding on. What was the food like? What were the accommodations like?
You get that feedback.
Yeah, exactly. How was the staff? Did everything flow well?
Yeah.
And that'll give you more of an inside look on, people's past experiences with that particular venue. Obviously, yes, you can go on Google reviews and read up reviews as well, but I feel like you get some more insider information on those Facebook groups, and that could help you make a decision in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think ultimately going with the venue that you feel like will leave you with as stress-free of a day as possible
100%
is also really important. So
yeah, definitely. And if one venue offers more accommodations than the other, I mean that's a big one too.
Yeah. But they can always ask us.
Ask us. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it for Venue Vibe. We basically, our big takeaways are ask questions, feel out the vibe, visualize yourself there. First impressions. When you first go and tour the venue. Yes, and go with your gut instinct.
Go with your gut instinct.
Yeah. So now that you've found your venue, the next step is building your dream team, which is what we'll talk about on the next episode. So tell us where you're touring. Feel free to write us in the comments, DM us, tell us where you're touring, ask questions from our perspective. And wherever you're planning and whatever you're dreaming, we love that for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If this episode was helpful, make sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We love hearing from you, so if you have a question, a planning struggle, or an episode idea, email me at jackie@limelihtentertainmentnj.com. There's a really good chance your question becomes a future episode. And if you're planning a New Jersey wedding and want vendors who truly care, you can find us at limelihwedding.com. And remember, wherever you're planning and whatever you're dreaming, we love that for you.